Hi, I'm Megan and welcome to my kitchen. In today's What's for Dinner video, I'll be sharing with you what meals we had this past week. Our dinners were easy to make, budget friendly, and delicious. So if you're looking for some weeknight meal ideas for your family, just keep watching. For dinner this first night, I'm going to try a new recipe for ground orange chicken. I'm going to start out though by making one of the sides. And I decided to do homemade egg rolls. I had some egg roll wrappers that needed to be used up. And then I had some oil in my deep fryer that I needed to use so that I could, then get rid of that oil and clean out the deep fryer. So I don't follow a recipe when I make homemade egg rolls. I've made them the same way for years and years. Here's how I do it. I just add a little bit of oil to the skillet and over about medium-high heat. I'm going to add in some coleslaw mix. You could, of course, chop up your own cabbage. You can also add whatever protein you'd like in here. You could cook up some ground pork, ground chicken, or shrimp. But I'm just keeping it, veggie based tonight. Then as far as seasonings go, use whatever seasonings you like and do it to your taste. This is just what I'm going to use. I've got garlic powder, some ground ginger, soy sauce, salt, and pepper. So once I've got that seasoned, I'm going to give it a stir, and then I like to cook that on probably medium heat for, maybe like 8 to 10 minutes. You just want to cook it until the cabbage and the vegetables are really, really tender, and then I like to set it to the side and allow it to cool slightly before I make the egg rolls. All right, for the egg rolls, here are the wrappers I'm going to use. I just find these at the regular grocery store, and most of the time they're in the produce section. So if you've never made homemade egg rolls before, there are usually instructions on the back of the package, so no worries. And I'm not an expert by any means at all. So I like to lay one of the wrappers down with one of the corners facing me. I add a little bit of the filling, and then I'm just going to roll the wrapper around that, pull in the sides, and then when I get to the end, I like to add just a little bit of water to help seal it, and that's it. I've got an egg roll. I'm going to set that to the side until I'm ready to deep fry these. Now, if you've watched my channel before, I've talked about how I hate deep frying. I hate the mess. I hate the smell. I hate that the oil pops everywhere, but I had already deep fried something a couple weeks ago, and so I was just wanting to use up the egg roll wrappers and wanting to use up the oil. So you just want to fry them at 350 degrees until they're golden brown. Everything inside's already cooked, so you're really just trying to cook the wrapper itself. And then I like to drain it on a wire rack. I also made some homemade sweet and sour sauce, and I filmed me making this, but I must have hit a setting or something because the footage of me filming it was wonky and weird. So I apologize about that. I'll try to film it next time. But this is really easy. This probably isn't traditional, but I've made it the same way ever since I was a teenager. I make it the way that my dad taught me. So what I do is I take equal parts sugar and ketchup, add it to a saucepan. I like to add in just a splash of water, not a lot, maybe a couple tablespoons, and then a little bit of soy sauce. And then for the sour part, I just use whatever I grab. Sometimes I use lemon juice. Sometimes I use rice vinegar. I think on this day I used a little bit of rice vinegar. But just give it a stir and then simmer it on low until the sugar is completely dissolved. Give it a taste if you feel like it, you want it a little more sour, a little more sweet. Just adjust the seasonings, and that's it. You've got homemade sweet and sour sauce. All right, now for the ground orange chicken. Here is a pound of ground chicken that I'm going to use. I'm going to make the sauce and go ahead and get that started while my skillet is heating up. So in this bowl, we are going to add some orange marmalade. Use the barbecue sauce of your choice, some ground ginger, red pepper flakes, minced garlic, sesame oil, rice wine vinegar, and then soy sauce, and that's pretty much it. And we're going to combine that until it's really well mixed, and then I'm going to set that to the side while I cook up the ground chicken. And just a quick disclaimer, you guys, this is not a traditional Chinese recipe, obviously. But if you are looking for a super quick and easy and budget-friendly dinner, I highly recommend this recipe. This was so easy to put together. It was quick, and it was delicious. Like I said, I hate deep frying stuff. I know I sound like a a hypocrite because I'm deep frying egg rolls in this video. But like I said, if you've watched me for a while, you know I very rarely deep fry. And that was one of the things that I loved about this recipe that made me want to try it, is that one, there was no deep frying, and two, it used ground chicken instead of, you know, having to cut up chicken breasts and batter them and fry them. So in this skillet here, I added a little bit of oil. Like I said, I let it heat up. I added in the ground chicken. I did season it with a little bit of salt and pepper. I don't believe the recipe said to do that, but I can't help but season my ground meat, or especially chicken. It needs some help. So once I browned it, and then I added in the sauce, we're going to give that a good stir and reduce that to a simmer, and you just need to simmer this for like 10 minutes. This is what it looked like when it was done. And I have to be honest, when I was putting the sauce together at first, I was like, I don't really know about this. I feel like I need to double the sauce, you know, to make sure we have enough to pour over the rice. Don't. It made plenty of sauce. You can serve this over many different things. You could do noodles, you could do just plain white rice, you could do fried rice, you could use like the frozen, like Trader Joe's fried rice. I just did brown rice. I had some of the Trader Joe's frozen brown rice on hand, so I just cooked that up according to the package instructions. All right, here are the plates. So I laid down that brown rice, added some of the ground orange chicken, garnished that with some chopped green onions and sesame seeds. We've got the sweet and sour sauce, the egg rolls, and then off camera I did just steam up some broccoli, seasoned it with a little salt and pepper. And like I said earlier, this was a delicious dinner. It was quick and easy to put together, and we had leftovers for lunch, which were so good. For dinner the next night, we just had leftovers. I forgot to get a picture, and to be honest, I don't even remember now what we ended up having. We just basically raided the fridge and ate, you know, the leftovers that were in the fridge, and that was our dinner that night. For dinner the next night, I made shrimp and grits. I have shared this before. I first saw this on Taylor Elmore. I will have her channel linked in the description box below for you. I'm going to start out by making the grits. Here's what I'm going to use for that. You'll need some quick 5-minute grits, some type of cheese. I mean, it really just depends on what you prefer. Like, I think Gouda would be really good in this. Cheddar, of course. I have this like cheddar blend, so I'm going to use that. I've got some cream on hand, so I'm going to use that. You could also just do like half and half for milk, and then butter, salt, and pepper. For the grits, you're going to bring your water to a boil, add salt, and then slowly whisk in your grits. You're going to cover that and cook it over low heat for about 5 to 7 minutes until the grits are smooth and creamy. You're going to remove that from the heat and then stir in the butter, cream, cheese, and season it to taste with salt and pepper, and that's it. I'm just going to cover it with a lid and let it stay warm while I'm making the rest of dinner. So for the sides, I'm kind of doing like his and hers. So I love lima beans. Gary doesn't love them particularly. And then Gary loves any kind of turnip green, mustard green, anything. I'll eat them. They're okay. They're not my favorite. So like I said, I'm going to do one of each for both of us, so we each have something we really love. So for the lima beans, I do them similar to like the Mandy and the Making green beans. So I drain the lima beans, put them into a pot, add some chicken stock, garlic powder, a little bit of brown sugar, and then usually either some butter or bacon fat, salt and pepper, and then simmer it for about 30 minutes until the beans are tender. For the greens, I drained the can, added it to a pot, and then just seasoned it. I think on this night I did some salt, pepper, Cajun seasoning, and added a little bit of bacon grease into that and simmered it while the rest of dinner was cooking. Now for the shrimp mixture, I didn't follow the recipe steps exactly. I'll tell you why in just a second. In this skillet, I browned up some chopped up bacon. I removed the bacon fat and the bacon, put the bacon on some paper towels to drain. I'm going to add in just a little bit of the bacon fat and then add in some chopped bell pepper and allow that to cook on about medium heat until the bell pepper is tender. Next, I'm going to add in some chopped green onions and garlic, give that a stir, and then cook that for just about a minute. Next, I am going to add in the chicken broth, and I had some homemade in my freezer that I needed to use up, so I just allowed it to thaw. You can use store-bought or like bouillon powder. So next, we're going to add in like the flavorings, the seasonings. I'm adding in some Worcestershire sauce and lemon juice. I'm going to cook that for just maybe a minute or so, and then add in some of that cooked bacon. Next, I'm going to add in the shrimp, and this is why I said I didn't follow the recipe steps exactly, because I'm using already cooked shrimp and I didn't want it to get overcooked. The recipe states for you to cook it earlier and set it to the side and then add it back at this point. So for the shrimp, I did season it with some Cajun seasoning and a little bit of cayenne pepper. I'm going to add the shrimp, give that a stir, and then, like I said, just cook that for a minute or so to warm that shrimp through because it's already cooked. And you can, of course, taste this and adjust the seasonings to your taste. All right, here are the plates. So I laid down some of the cheesy grits, added the shrimp mixture, garnished it with some chopped green onions, and then we've got the lima beans and the greens. I set out some hot sauce for Gary for his shrimp and grits, and then added some like pepper vinegar so he could put that on his greens, and this was such a delicious and comforting dinner. For dinner the next night, we went out to just one of our local Mexican restaurants here in town. We started out with chips and salsa, of course, and we ordered some of their queso. And then for the entrees, I tried their steak burrito this night. It was actually really good. Inside, it had steak and sauteed onions, tomatoes, and peppers, and then rice and beans, of course. And then for Gary, he got their, I think it was the fajitas Jalisco. It had steak, chicken and shrimp, and then the veggies, and then all the toppings, you know, the lettuce, the guac, the pico, all that. So this was a delicious dinner. It was so good, and it was really nice not to have to cook this night. For dinner the next night, I made Asian lettuce wraps. I have shared this before also, and I like to combine a couple different recipes, so I'll have the measurements that I use in the description box below. Here are the ingredients I'm going to use. I've got some mushrooms, shredded carrots, green onions, some water chestnuts. I'm going to drain those and chop them. And then for the sauce, I have hoisin, minced garlic, sriracha, rice vinegar, sesame oil, soy sauce, ginger powder, and then, of course, some salt and pepper. So in this skillet here, I have some ground turkey. I just seasoned it with a little salt and pepper and cooked it until it was brown. You could also do this with ground chicken. I'm sure that would be delicious as well. As you can see, there's no fat. I had to drain. So once I've got that brown, I'm going to add in the shredded carrots, and then my chopped up mushrooms and the water chestnuts. And I like to chop these pretty fine, but you know, if you want a little more texture, of course, you can chop them a little larger. I'm going to give that a stir and then cook that for just a couple minutes until the vegetables are good and tender. At that point, I'm going to add in the sauce, give that a really good stir. And then I'm going to simmer this for just about 5 minutes, and that's it. It is ready to go. Here's what the mixture looked like when it was done. And I like to let this cool just slightly. I mean, you don't have to do that, but that's just a personal preference. So for the side, I'm going to cook up these crispy green beans. If you've ever had the fried green beans from TGI Fridays, these taste almost exactly like it. And then for the lettuce wraps, I found this little mini iceberg lettuce at Kroger's. So that's what I'm going to use. You could also use Bib lettuce, butter lettuce, any kind of lettuce that, you know, just kind of leave it in the little cup form so that you can make your lettuce wraps. For the green bean fries, you can bake them. I chose to cook them in the air fryer according to the package instructions. And then here are the plates. So we've got those green bean fries. To dip the fries in, really you could use anything. TGI Fridays, I think, used to serve it with an avocado ranch. So I'm using some of the Chick-fil-A avocado ranch. And then all I did was take the lettuce, I peeled it away so that, again, it was a cup form, added some of that mixture, added a little bit of extra chopped scallions, and then Gary ended up adding just an extra drizzle of hoisin to his lettuce wraps. You could also use some sriracha. I think that would be good as well. And this was a delicious dinner. Those lettuce wraps are so good, and those green bean fries are yummy. For dinner the next night, I made enchilada zucchini boats. I've made these a few times. The first time I made them, it was part of a recipe swap collab. I will link that video down in the description box below. Sarah from Sarah's Realm sent me this recipe, and we really enjoyed it. And like I said, we've made it a few times since then. So what I like to do is take some zucchini, I slice them in half, I scoop out some of the inside, I place them on a greased cookie sheet lined with aluminum foil. I drizzle it with a little bit of oil, season it with salt and pepper, pepper and pop it into a preheated oven at 400 degrees, and I like to cook them for about 20 to 25 minutes until they are tender. While the zucchini is pre-baking, I'm going to get started on the side dish. I tried a new recipe for Southwestern roasted potatoes. Of course, the recipe will be linked down below. Here are the potatoes that I'm going to use. You can use whatever kind you prefer. I have got a cookie sheet. I lined again with foil, sprayed it with some cooking spray. I added the potatoes. I just quartered these. Next, I'm going to add some chopped onion and bell pepper. Really, you can use whatever kind of onion and whatever color bell pepper you prefer. I'm going to use some purple or red onion and then some orange bell peppers. I'm going to drizzle that with some oil and season it with some salt and pepper. Now, for the recipe, I didn't follow the measurements of the recipe, but I just used like the spices as kind of a guide. I just seasoned it to taste. Seasoned with my heart, as they say. So we're going to do some garlic powder, cumin, oregano, and then I think the recipe called for regular paprika. I wanted to use smoked, so that's what I'm going to use. Some chili powder, and then that's it. We're going to give this a really good mix and then pop this into the preheated oven, and you'll want to bake these for maybe about 40 minutes or so until they are fork tender and brown to your liking. Now, I wasn't thinking when I made this, I should have cut the onions and bell peppers up bigger because they did get a little on the, we'll say brown side. They were almost burnt. So yeah, I just should have cut them a little bit bigger, but nonetheless, they were delicious. While the zucchinis were pre-baking and the potatoes were cooking, I'm going to get started on the filling for the zucchini boat. So I've got some ground turkey. You can do ground chicken or ground beef as well. I had a little bit of oil in this skillet. I'm going to add my turkey. I thought I had this on and had the oil heating. It wasn't. But that's okay. It worked out in the end. So I added the ground turkey and then added in some of the chopped, I just used the purple onion that I had from the potatoes. I'm going to add some salt and pepper and then cook that until the turkey is all the way brown. And depending on what type of meat you're using in this, you may need to drain off some of the fat. I'm going to add in some minced garlic, give that a stir, and cook that for just about 30 seconds to a minute, and then add in the rest of the ingredients. So I'm going to add in some diced green chilies, and I don't find these to be hot at all. I mean, if you're sensitive to heat, you start by adding, maybe a tablespoon and add more. I'm going to add in some enchilada sauce. Use your favorite. I like the old El Paso brand. I'm going to add in some taco seasoning, and I think the recipe calls for a little bit of water. I don't ever add the water. I think I did the first time and haven't done it since. I just don't feel like it needs it, but I mean, you can add it if you want. I'm going to give that a stir and then simmer this on low for, I don't know, I just let it simmer while the potatoes and zucchini were baking in the oven. So once the zucchini was done, I pulled that out. I'm going to add the ground turkey mixture to the boats, and then we're going to top it with a little more of the enchilada sauce and some shredded cheese. Use whatever shredded cheese you prefer. I've got some Fiesta blend on hand as well as just some shredded sharp cheddar cheese, so I'm going to do that. And then this is going to go back into the oven, and really you're just baking it at this point to melt that cheese and finish the zucchini cooking. I would say like maybe 10 minutes or so. So here is what it looked like when it was done, and I do like to let these cool for just a few minutes before serving them. They can be piping hot. So here's a picture of my plate. Gary was at the gym this night, so he ate later than I did. I forgot to get a picture of his plate. It was basically the same thing. I have one of the zucchini boats. I garnished it with a little bit of Greek yogurt. Didn't have any sour cream, but that's a fine substitute. Some chopped green onions. I've got some of the roasted potatoes, and then I did some fruit. For Gary, he had 2 of the boats, some of the potatoes, and no fruit. And this was our dinner this night. So yummy, and it's a different spin on enchiladas than the usual tortillas and everything. So it's really yummy. For the last dinner in this week's video, I'm trying a new recipe for leek and potato soup. I'm going to start out by making the side dish. I've shared this before. The recipe's called a pea salad, but I've shared many different versions of pea salad. This is really like a layered salad featuring peas, but I love it. It's so good. I got this recipe, gosh, probably 20 years or so ago from a lady that I used to work with at the bank. So in this bowl, I'm going to start out by making the dressing. We're going to add some mayonnaise, sugar. You could also use sugar replacement. And if you want to use Miracle Whip, hey, you're in your kitchen. Use Miracle Whip. We're going to add a little bit of milk and then give that a really good whisk. And that's it. The dressing is done. We're going to set that to the side. And a quick note before I forget, I am having the original recipe. So you can use whatever container you'd like. It is pretty to do this in a see-through container or a glass container if you can, so that you can see the different layers. I'm going to add in some romaine lettuce. Really, you could use any kind of lettuce you prefer, but I would go with like romaine or iceberg if you can. And then we are going to add some hard-boiled eggs. I like to slice these and then just, arrange them on top of the lettuce. Next, we're going to add in the peas. These are frozen peas that I allowed to thaw. Now, you can use canned peas. I know a lot of people like to do that in their pea salad. It's just a personal preference. I feel like the canned peas read a little mushy, so I like to use the frozen peas. But again, just use your preference. Once we've added the peas, I'm going to add that dressing on top, and then we're going to add some cheese. Don't worry, we're not using all of this cheese. I just went ahead and shredded the whole block while I was at it. Now, I was a little generous with the cheese on this, but hey, whatever. You can't go wrong with adding a little extra cheese. Next, I'm going to add some cooked and crumbled bacon. This was left over from when I cooked the shrimp and grits. You can, of course, just use prepackaged bacon crumbles, and then that's it. We're going to cover this, and you do want to let this refrigerate for, I don't know, maybe a few hours or so, and then we'll be ready to serve it up. Here's the finished salad, and right before I serve it, I like to give it a really good toss. And it's really, really simple, but it's delicious. Both Gary and I love this salad. Okay, so for the soup, I didn't really follow a specific recipe. I kind of went off a couple different ones, but I will put the measurements that I used in the description box below. To a pot, I'm going to add in some butter, and then once that's melted, I'm adding in a couple of russet potatoes. I peeled these and then cubed them. I'm also adding in some onion and a shallot that I chopped. I'm going to add in some minced garlic. I'm using the stuff from the jar, but you could, of course, mince up your own. And then the leeks. So I have a couple of leeks. What I did was I thinly sliced them. I discarded the really tough, super green parts. And then once I thinly sliced them, I added them to a colander, rinsed them really well, then let them sit in some cold water for probably like 15 minutes or so. Removed that water, gave them another good rinse, rinsed them again for probably 10 minutes or so. There's a lot of dirt and grit that gets in between the layers of the leeks. So you just want to make sure that you clean them really, really well. So I'm going to add the leeks and then season it with some salt and pepper, and then I'm going to cook that for probably 7 to 10 minutes or so until the vegetables start to get tender. Next, we're going to add some chicken broth. I'm using water and some of this chicken base. Once I've added that, I'm going to give it a good stir and then bring this to a boil and simmer this for about 15 to 20 minutes or so until the potatoes are really tender and basically falling apart. At this point, we need to blend this until it's good and smooth. Now, you could remove this to a blender and do it that way, but that just makes me nervous with the super hot liquid, so I prefer to do an immersion blender. Once that is smooth, you're going to add in some cream. Now, this was a little thick for my liking. It could be because I used like an extra potato or so, so you could add some more broth. I just added in like maybe another half cup or so of cream, and once that's smooth and you're happy with the texture, give it a taste and adjust the seasonings to your taste. You might want to add a little more salt, a little more pepper, but that's pretty much it. So this is what the soup looked like when it was done. And then here are the plates. So we've got some of the pea salad, the soup, and to garnish the soup, one of my subscribers suggested serving this with cornbread, and I totally meant to do that and forgot until like pretty much the soup was done. But I'll have to give that a try next time I make this. So to garnish it, I just added a few little bacon pieces, some chopped green onions, and then I took some croutons and crushed them up a little bit and served that. Now, I really liked this soup. Gary wasn't a huge fan. I mean, it was okay for him, but he didn't love it. But he's not a big soup person anyway, especially like creamy pureed type soups like this, so I knew he wouldn't necessarily love it, but I knew he loves that pea salad, so I knew making the pea salad with it, I would win on one aspect of dinner. But that was our dinner this night. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you liked this video. Hope you got some dinner ideas from it. If you did like it, hit the thumbs up button below and subscribe to my channel if you're not already. Hope you have a great rest of the day. Thanks so much for watching. Bye bye.